my people are the ones that are going to empower us, because it's just like, hey, you did this thing. You are in pain because you're doing this thing. How do we heal that wound that you needed this medicine for?
Hey y'all, Christina here for a brief intro. Lauren and I were unable to record this week because, as I mentioned in the last episode, I have started PHP, which is taking up a lot of my energy, and Lauren had a show on Friday, which is when we normally record. But fear not, we have an action-packed episode for you today. This is a conversation that I had with two of my friends back in July. Believe it or not, I've been sitting on this for a while. I finally got around to editing it. We talk about harm reduction. We talk about eating disorders. We talk about community. We talk about a lot of stuff. Just a few notes. Obviously, when we recorded this, our life circumstances were a little bit different. As of today, I am sober from Benadryl and weed. I know. Hold the applause. So I'll make references to using those substances. Just thought I would mention it. Hopefully next week we will be back with a topic of my choosing. Just a reminder, we still have an open poll that you can answer. That poll is, how has money affected your mental health? And or what is something you wish you were taught about finances? To leave us a voice message, go to speakpipe.com/picklesandvodka. And you can send us a message on any of our social media. All right. I know the world is a lot right now, and everything is just getting worse and worse every day. But this conversation brought a little bit of queer joy into my life when I needed it the most. And I hope that y'all come away from it feeling a little bit uplifted. All right. Here's the episode.
Check testing 1 2 3.
You're too far.
Do I have to get all the way down here? Check testing 1 2 3.
Bagel. Vegan, gluten-free bagel with no egg, but they taste like paste. So,
and that is the title of this week's episode of Pickles and Vodka, the mental health podcast where the queers have taken over. I'm Christina, or Chris as you know me. And I'm one of the co-hosts of this show. The other co-host, Lauren, is not here because, like I said, the queers have taken over. I have two guests with me, and one of them is scooching closer and closer, and we're about to touch heads. Okay. I've never recorded with three people in the same room before, so this is awkward.
I'm here for it.
Okay, good. But y'all seriously have to get closer when you talk.
Yeah, got you.
All right. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
No.
Say your name, pronouns, where you're from, anything else you feel like people would want to know about you before they dive in.
Hi, my name is Rune. My pronouns are they or he, and I currently live in Oakland, California. I'm very interested in how flow art and harm reduction can help people heal through trauma and help us decolonize ourselves so we can actually do something in this movement of the world falling apart. Healing your own trauma, I guess, is the most thing. Fuck, I don't want to say that. Cut that.
You're getting deep so fast. I'm going to say you don't have to go that
Cut it out. Okay. Shh. Just cut that part out, but erase that. I do fire spinning. I'm a performer, and I am a furry as well.
They performed for us last night in a parking lot. It wasn't a parking lot. It was a recreational space.
Yeah. It was like by the water, surrounded by beautiful little native plants and stuff sprouting up everywhere. And then there was just random spots of pavement that were just open. And there were picnic benches, weren't there?
Yes, Phoenix, there were picnic benches.
So it was intentional space that was flat. Like people were supposed to conjugate there. Like
Conjugate.
Is that the right word?
Congregate.
That's the word.
Conjugate is
no, please
when
cut
people
that.
have sex in prison. Anyway.
People do that there too, probably. But
Phoenix, why don't you introduce yourself since you're already...
I don't even want to be here now. I'm just gonna...
Wow. All right. That's the show, everyone.
No. I'm just going to be a fly on the wall. I'm Phoenix. Hi. Bye.
Okay, cool. That's Phoenix, everyone. And yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you both about drugs because I like drugs and also they're not good for me. I was trying to be funny, but I couldn't think of a joke because, like, right now it's not funny for me. But
Drugs in what sense?
that's a great question, fly on the wall. Substances that alter your mood and or your body chemistry. I wasn't expecting to have to answer that.
I'm sorry. I just feel like that. I feel like everybody's
Need to be a little bit
definition
more
of drugs is
specific.
different.
Yeah.
You know, because there's so many people are accepting of so many different kinds of drugs already, and they think that it's okay to consume them in the way that they do.
Let's start with that. Do you like to use the word drugs when you're referring to your substances of choice, or what kind of terminology do you prefer? Do you feel like drugs has a bad connotation?
I like substances or supplements, and then behind the scenes, it can be like my girlfriend or boyfriend or friend or like a relationship.
Yes. So Lauren, my co-host, who's not here, was just talking last week about how substances for her have been company in the past, and it is like our oldest relationship in some ways. But I guess a good place to start would be like, how are you connected to the topic, which is in this case harm reduction?
I think it's all connected. I think it's, harm reduction is going to help a lot of people, not just one group. It interconnects with like shame and homeless people and just the way that we see other people in our individualistic mindset. We all need certain things to survive. And I just personally believe that the substances that have more danger or like guard around them are just being weaponized by the government for like privileges. The elite can have access to the drugs that they use to do whatever, but certain like life-saving things are not allowed to go out because other people think that they can decide what other people need. And they're still coming from the earth, So I think there needs to be a real switch of seeing substances as just other parts of the earth that you are using to help your body for whatever it is. Like smoking weed, that's definitely part of the earth,
Yeah.
There's so many different ways that you can have connections to those things.
Well,
so, I've done a lot of drugs and I have no shame around doing them because I was someone that did not have my needs met and I was looking for ways to survive.
Mm-hmm.
And if I had those needs met, if I had harm reduction in place, I wouldn't have gone to those spaces with those drugs because I would have had community there. I would have had the things that I needed where I wasn't just depending on this one thing. But I don't really care what anybody thinks.
Yeah.
Like I can tell somebody like, oh yeah, I struggle with heroin. And if they judge me, I don't give a fuck. Bye.
Yeah. Exactly.
I don't care. Like you are not, okay, then like get the fuck away from me. You're not my people. My people are the ones that are going to empower us because it's just like, hey, you did this thing. You are in pain because you're doing this thing. How do we heal that wound that you needed this medicine for? Because in my experience, I started doing drugs to be normal and go to work. I had to be high to go to work and be normal because if I was normal and went to work, I'd fucking feel terrible. I'd have sensory overwhelm or, I would be picking at my skin or I would be just like not overanalyzing social things and like getting stuck on conversations. And it was just too much. So I needed something to help me survive. And, that's why like the whole system has kind of made us ashamed of using these things because they associate it to certain like ways of being, like crystal meth or smoking crack. They paint a picture of like who you are if you do these types of drugs when there's so much history behind these drugs of like systemic oppression and like intentionally trying to like kill communities. So it's been weaponized. There's a lot of pieces there, but I guess the main point for me is how I'm trying to experience substances now and really like, because I want to have a good relationship with them. Yeah. I understand that like, I don't like the substance abuse either, because that means I'm abusing the drug. I'm abusing my relationship with the drug.
Or abusing yourself by using the drug.
Yeah. I think it honestly connects to like me being a pansexual person. I kind of can put that into the way that I feel and have connections to everything around me. Like I get a vibe with it or if I don't. I have like a fucking stuffed animal at home, Vinny, and I love Vinny. Like I talk to Vinny when no one's fucking around, so I can put it into the experiences I have with substances. And I look at it and it's like, if this is a relationship that I want to maintain, I have to treat that well the same way if I wanted to treat me well. And treating that well is setting boundaries of when I want it in my life, or when I needed to stop. Like those are the boundaries that in the end are going to save the relationship. Because, that happens in regular relationships all the time. Something's too much or like you need a break or whatever because bad things starting to happen. You're never going anywhere. I can fucking get you down the street. but I need to take some time off, and I don't have that abandonment feeling. I have control of being like, I just need to stop this right now, get my life together, and then we can be together again.
Oh my God, yeah. I feel like in the past, well, first of all, I think we should go around and give a brief history of our relationship with drugs. I can go first if you want. I grew up homeschooled and sheltered and didn't have access to drugs ever. Didn't know anybody who used drugs. And so when I went to this Christian college, I met the kids who did drugs. And that's when I started drinking for the first time and smoking and really mild stuff. But I quickly became dependent on alcohol when I moved to Austin. It's like a party town. And ended up going to detox in 2019. I had 4 years sober, and then I relapsed this January. And been addicted to other stuff along the way. There was a time I was really into DXM. The Benadryl has been going on for 4 years now. I just got diagnosed ADHD last year, and I realized that a lot of the drugs I choose, I'm really into downers because it is the only time I feel like I can just not overthink everything. Actually, this ties into harm reduction too, because my psychiatrist currently refuses to give me ADHD meds until I can cut back on the drugs I use for my untreated ADHD.
Like weed?
Yeah, like weed. He wants me to cut down on the fucking weed.
Yeah. You gotta get a new one.
Yeah.
Because some of them just don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
My old psychiatrist was just like, you're not supposed to smoke weed, but I'm not going to keep you from accessing drugs, the stuff that you need. Because they're that pivotal person, They're the ones that decide that whether or not, informed consent. Okay, well, let's see how this goes.
But yeah, it doesn't really matter what the drug is. I just like altering my state, and I have abused almost every, over-the-counter stuff, random stuff I found in my mom's cabinet, random pills I find at the bottom of my purse. And I didn't start smoking weed until 2 years ago, actually, but I smoke every day. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like I write about it a lot on the internet, but I'm still kind of awkward talking about it in this way. What about you?
Growing up, I never liked alcohol, never really liked weed. It was just not my thing. Everybody around me kind of did it, and I kind of participated, but I never got drunk at parties. I was always just whatever. The first drug I really got into was probably when I was I got a breast reduction when I was 19, and I felt very confident. I felt like I liked my body more. I was a very big person, I'm 200 pounds, and I'm 5'2", so huge boobs. So it was a big shift for me, and it made me really think about well, before I was kind of I don't want to look at my body. I can't look at my body. My body is just it makes me so unhappy. It's just I want it to be invisible. But with this, it gave me a new sense of maybe there's hope. But there's a lot of fat phobia in my family, my mom specifically. I have very vivid memories of her talking about my body when I was young, saying I couldn't wear a 2-piece bathing suit when I was 10 years old because I was too fat. I told neighbors I was going on a diet at 9 and 10 years old, and they were like, "Yay, good for you." So to me, it was very clear that if you wanted people to be nice to you, also was very bullied in school too. I was very quiet, shy, gentle kid, and I like to observe before I really get into anything. But yeah, and
Did you go to school in California?
No, Chesapeake in Maryland.
Okay.
So yeah, people are fucking mean, and to me, at that age, it was kind of just I have to change the way that I look to be safe, because I'm going to be tortured for the rest of my life if I look like this, because I'm not a fighter type person. I'm just not. I'm a creative type person, and I have other skills, but it doesn't come naturally to me to bully back someone,
Yeah.
So I had to find a different way. And my way was to just essentially have a coke problem. It started with the ADHD meds to lose weight, specifically starve myself. So I went from 180 pounds to 140 in a month for just not eating. And everybody was so happy.
Yeah.
Everybody was so "Oh my God, you look so great. You're amazing." It's fucked up because it did exactly what I thought it was going to do for a reason that reinforced that there's something wrong with me. I needed to change my body. I was unlovable here, but now because I starved myself, I'm now able to have access to the emotional support that I was looking for.
Yeah.
So when you're younger, it's kind of just that's the way things are. I didn't want to dig deeper into it. I know there's more pain and trauma in there, but it's kind of how I lived. So, yeah.
How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm going to be 37.
Okay, so the culture was very fat phobic.
And my mom, I think my mom had eating disorder stuff.
Yeah.
And she like put that on me. But anyways, I moved to California and I did not have access to the cocaine anymore. Moved to a brand new environment. I learned later in life that like I'm ADHD and autistic, and changes in environments are stressful but also interesting and new. So I was trying to go through that transition, and because I did not have the structure of eating at all, because I was like starving myself for months at a time, I had to like go back into normal life and eat, but I was starving. So I was eating so much, it was making me sick. So I ended up throwing it up. And then it got into a cycle of binging and throwing it up. And then it got like worse and worse. And it was an emotional regulation thing. There was something inside me that was very dark and hard to process, but I didn't know what it was. And I just kept using this tool that I knew would keep me safe. As long as I'm thin and pretty, I will be safe.
You have like 97% of our listeners just like furiously nodding with you right now, because we have a lot of people who have struggled with eating disorders / still struggle listening. So
there was no like representation of what I was supposed to be growing up that made me feel the most comfortable. I just knew the people that I saw that people liked and that people were nice to. And I'm just like, I just want people to be nice and friendly to me so they don't stab me in the back. So that's kind of like how I oriented myself of being. Like, who I am is how I protect myself from everybody out there. And I did my best. And I was like a really hot lady. I was proud of how I looked. I feel like I achieved femininity in a way that like activated like a power inside of me where I felt like super fucking confident. I remember feeling very confident in that space and still feeling like there's something missing. So
when did you realize you were trans? And were you still struggling with your eating?
It's like I feel that it's intertwined with substance use, because the substance use was how I was able to become comfortable in a body that I didn't feel was mine. And not mine is just like, oh, I'm just going to have like a little bit of plastic surgery to be mine. Like when I close my eyes and think about the thing, creature, whatever that I am, this body at the time did not match that. I looked in the mirror and I was like, you're fucking hot. You're beautiful, but that's not me. And I don't know what to do. I didn't make the connection about gender yet. I felt that thing inside me, but I didn't know how to navigate it. It just came out at certain times, when I was out in public or whatever. And it was just a feeling. I didn't know how to identify a feeling or put words to a feeling. Felt like a boy. What the fuck does that mean, And then I started spinning fire. And spinning fire was how I was able to have silence for a little bit of time.
How would you describe that for people who have never heard of it?
Oh, yeah, it's flow art. So I got into flow art 9 years ago by essentially just Googling flow art lessons, because there's classes around that'll teach you basic things. And there's a whole bunch of different props. My theory with flow art is you have a relationship with your prop. You dance with your prop. You listen to music. You're in your zone. You are using this prop as an extension of like your emotional process. It comes in like, you feed into the prop and the prop feeds you. Like when I'm spinning fire, it's just us together. There's nobody else. I'm present. I mean, I'm appreciating the crowd, but like, it's just, I'm in that relationship with this thing. And that's what I want flow art to be to other people, because I think people think they compartmentalize relationships a lot of what they're allowed to be. And I don't want that for my life. But I don't necessarily have anyone guiding me on how to do that. Anyways, I feel like I'm getting off track.
We were talking about your history with drugs, and then you were talking about your eating disorder. Well, did you ever see it as an eating disorder? Did anyone ever approach you with concern or anything?
Oh, yeah. I was like hospitalized and did this patient program. It was an outpatient technically, but I had to stay there 5 days a week, all day long. And then I had like a plan on the weekends of what to do. And, there were good things about what that offered, but it lacked depth. I think eating disorder places often treat a very minor symptom instead of actually listening to the people that are going through it and finding a root cause.
We have so many episodes about our beef with treatment.
People are just very reductive about like what's actually coming from. Yeah. And, I was in therapy since I was 10. So I met a lot of fucking therapists and a lot of like mental health people that I was talking to, and not a single person mentioned my gender. Mm-hmm. Not a single person mentioned being autistic. But if I knew those things, my trajectory would have changed. Mm-hmm. So, I spent a lot of time searching in like a medical field type of way. But that to me shows that like the academia portion around with these things that we're experiencing. Like, we're the ones that are supposed to tell the stories of our experiences, not other people telling the stories of somebody else's experiences. So that's what we're doing now, which is great.
Well, that's kind of what liberatory harm reduction is all about. Are you familiar with that?
Not with the term.
With the term? Well, so, okay, this is all relevant. Because Phoenix got me this book called Saving Our Own Lives, A Liberatory Practice of Harm Reduction by Shira Hassan. And it's basically all about, like, giving people the power to take care of themselves and have autonomy. It's a really good book so far. This is one random acronym I found. This syringe exchange program was called SEXY, SEXXY, Syringe Exchange Expansion for Youth. That's it. I just wanted to tell you about SEXY. When did you, I guess, find out what harm reduction was? Like, what were you doing before you started harm reduction? And I guess you could also define harm reduction for you.
I think harm reduction is community, getting rid of shame and stigma, not feeling a scarcity mindset, having like things available when we need them for safety, and like forgiveness of yourself.
That last one is huge. Like, how does one forgive oneself?
We're trying the best we can. It's an orientation of healing or getting better. You know, if your thoughts return to that trajectory, then essentially you are healing yourself. And it's not linear. And I know everybody says that, and it's like super cliche or whatever.
So worth repeating.
But people think about it in like a line, and I think it's more like expansive than that. Like, there's things pulling you from other directions, but it's still, you're still going in the trajectory of what your intention is. And it's okay if things pull you away, because you can still learn a little bit over there, but you know you're going to come back, and you make like a commitment to that.
And what is your intention then?
With what?
Like you said, you always come back to your intention.
Well, whatever it is that you're like struggling with. If you're talking about forgiveness, you know, that doesn't come overnight.
I mean, I grew up very religious, and so the word forgiveness is kind of loaded for me too.
So I was in the eating disorder thing for a minute, got out of that, did the best that I could to maintain it. Was spinning fire, realized I was trans because it made me present. I think you heard the story last night. It made everything fucking quiet. Just to stop my brain. It made it like it put all the blocks into the fucking thing where it needed to be.
So Rune happened to be in town for my impromptu like birthday celebration at the park, and they put on a show. I mean, everything was incredible, but the part I liked the best was when you paused and had this statement. You just talked to the crowd, kind of told your story, and I was wondering if you would like just summarize what it was.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have something special. I have something very unique. I have something very powerful, because when I do spin fire for people, it changes how people feel. And if I can do one thing and change the way that people feel in a room by doing something that's my favorite thing, that's a really powerful feeling. So, like I said, the most questions I get asked are, do you go to Burning Man? And the answer is no, too dusty. And then the other one is just like, how did you get into this? And I try to make it very clear that like I got into it because I was searching something when I was lonely. Like, it was right after a relationship. I was feeling really down and empty, and I was searching for something actively. And when I like looked in myself and I'm like, what do I imagine myself being? When I'm in my power and I feel confident, like when I close my eyes and like think of myself, I just see fire. I see like lust fire. I see a lot of like danger, but like a kind of smooth and gracefulness to it. And so I'm like, how do I achieve that? And I was like, I'll be a fire dancer. You know, how do I become a fire dancer? So I just literally Googled it, and it was like fire dancing lessons. You don't start with fire. You start with like poi and like smaller things, and then you move up to fire when you're more comfortable, but it's essentially flow art. And I got the poi first and started with them, and it was a life-changing thing. Remember the first time I ever played with fire, I was like, we're going to be together forever. I remember I have a vivid memory of the first like swoosh I did with my brand new poi. It was just like love at first sight.
That's how I felt the time I got drunk for the first time.
But what did you feel?
I felt like I came home, like I was finally relaxed, and like it was like someone understood me, or like I understood myself better. And I felt safe, or like unbothered, I guess. Yeah, and I mean, the Benadryl has a similar effect. It's a very brief euphoria, and that's the feeling you're always chasing, but it never lasts, and it turns into restlessness and paranoia and just like insomnia, ironically.
I guess what were you trying to achieve, or where were you trying to go when you were drinking? Because I just feel that, like, you know, you were trying to find, your needs weren't being met in one way or another. And you found this thing to help you get back to a space of normalcy for you, where you can actually, like, build from there. Because if we operate on trauma all the time, and I feel like substances are able to take the trauma out for a second, so we have time to, like, manage the shit inside the house.
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
know? Like, when I think about drugs, sometimes it's kind of like when I think about doing Molly, it's like, say we're in this room and there's like shit just flying everywhere. Not super chaotic, but definitely like in my way, like trying to and I want to put everything away, but everything is just too much. Like the Molly makes everything just stay perfectly still. And then I'm not distracted and I can put everything away. It's just an emotional space of like peace.
Yeah.
But then when you're at that peace, that's when like the progress begins. Because it's like, I have my needs met right now. What do I have to do to work through this? What do I tap into my wisdom to work through what is happening while I'm like, use it for good, you know, like use it for actual moving forward. I mean, every drug is different with how it impacts people. I'm not.
Well, yeah, and every person's different, but we're talking about your experience.
Yeah, my experiences are very intentional. My drug experiences are very intentional. I'm a very like intellectual person, so I like use them and analyze them and try to figure out how it makes me feel or why it makes me feel this way and like how long it's going to make me feel and like, is this something I can do for a long time?
That's another reason I have weird feelings about calling addiction a sickness, because it's like a sickness of capitalism. Ooh, go on.
I mean, it's not an individual sickness. It's like a societal poisoning from capitalism. Like,
agreed.
Like, it's not the individual's fault. We do not have healthcare in this fucking country.
Nope.
So we will be resourceful and do what we can to match what we need. We are all traumatized children trying to make it through. We're looking for resources to help us because we got to go to fucking work. We have to socialize. We have to be normal enough. And sometimes when that shit doesn't happen, you start hurting yourself.
Yeah.
Because you feel lonely and you feel like you can't connect with people. And I've done that so many times.
Speaking
where it's
my language.
Like I go out and I'm like, okay, I'm going to meet these people. I'm going to be cool. Everything's going to be fine. And it doesn't go well. And I'm like, what do I need to make this better? Oh, I can do a drug. It helps me calm and have peace. And then my real self can come out. So it makes things kind of quiet. And then I get vulnerable. I'm able to achieve vulnerability with people. But like, I'm not going to be vulnerable with someone I don't trust. And if I first meet you, I'm not going to trust you. And the trauma in my life makes it difficult for me to be vulnerable. And I have to be very cautious about when certain parts of me are let out. Because
you get along with Lauren super well. I have to drag stuff out of her.
Yeah. I mean, you have to feel that space. And sometimes you can cultivate that space. You know, if you don't feel it in the moment, you can like try to figure out what you need to have that vulnerability. But as far as intimacy goes and like with other people, when I'm doing nitrous, for example, there are people that you have in your life where like, you're like, I love these people. They're really great. You know, but there's something still like blocked off. Like if there's like something that you're like keeping for yourself and there isn't like true vulnerability with them for one reason or another, you might not be able to articulate what it is, but there's a part of you that's just like for your own safety and like self-preservation, you just like hold that back. So you're still having a relationship with this person, but the relationship might not continue or grow from there if those parts aren't allowed to come out. Because I mean, if that's what you want, like I've had relationships where I'm like, there's a cap to them. Like I can be intimate in a way, like I can be vulnerable. I can be exactly who I am. And there's certain points our value systems or something doesn't match. And then there's like a cap on like how far or intimate I can go with this person.
There's different tiers almost.
People of different value, you know, and you see if there's a line, you try to be like, okay, this person, I can work through this and keep going because it's worth it. But that requires immense vulnerability in those moments because, you know, if you want people to be like your people, they got to know all of you.
God, I'm uncomfortable, but also yes to all that.
Can I get some water?
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
I can bring the pitcher in here.
Oh, okay. How am I doing?
You're doing great. I'm just trying not to talk because, again, I feel like this is about like an interview and a conversation with you two about your experiences because you're the ones that both have like...
Would you have me to add?
I mean, there's always some sort of like peanut gallery comment coming through my head, or there's always something that like, I mean, it's not that this isn't relatable or I don't think the same things as you in this conversation. Like, I mean, you and I are best friends for a reason. Like, we share the same value system in a lot of ways and a pretty similar understanding of the world. But also you and I have like vastly different experiences when it comes to like now on topics of substances or drugs or eating disorders. I come from, like I am the child of addicts. So I was terrified of using any quote unquote substances for like my entire life until I was, an adult. I didn't smoke a cigarette until I was 18. I didn't have my first drink until I was just short of 21. I was 20. And I didn't smoke weed until after I was 31, the first time I smoked weed. I knew about substances, but I was terrified of them. And I was terrified of what they would do to me because I didn't want to wind up like my parents. And my substance of choice, the thing that I ran to and became an addict to, was literally harming myself physically because I didn't want to become like them. That was the most important thing, is that I didn't fall into that trap of being an addict. So I found some other way to do it.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I know I specifically asked about drugs at the beginning of this, but also harm reduction doesn't just apply to drugs. And that's what I love about this book. They talk about harm reduction in terms of like self-harm. I mean, I consider it an addiction, but
I mean, I think since I've also started, like, since I started smoking weed and since I've had all these big changes in my life now, I would say that it's definitely come into my life as a substance that I would struggle to let go of.
Weed?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I've used it as a really big crutch. And I've also found a
harsh word.
I've found a lot of joy and a lot of medicine in other substances. And that's really what I try to look at them as for myself, is I don't look at substances as like, I'm going to get high or I'm trying to like escape from something. I'm using medicine right now, and how's this going to help my body and my mind?
Yeah.
And I try to use it with intention as well.
Yeah, it's unfortunate with the substance association.
Yeah.
With the trauma that you experienced with your parents, because those are like your first memories, and you're going to associate like, this thing makes my parents this way and I get scared or whatever. So that thing is automatically going to be bad, and you're going to be like repulsed by the idea of doing that thing.
Well, if I can add something to that, it's that my parents also, I wasn't aware of how many times they were actually using in my presence. Mm. So my ability to understand when people are high around me is like, it's not really there. I mean, that
You're the perfect fly on the wall for this episode, then.
Yeah. I think there's a little bit of like trauma and confusion in there with it too, about being around people on substances, because I can't read them and I can't understand them, and it scares me. Mm-hmm. So
I think what we have to do, as far as like, because destigmatizing the substances and just seeing them as like a tool or a thing by themselves, people have personal responsibility of what they're going to do with them. And I think when we connect the substance to the person, there's like a moral issue with the substance, because the person is doing it in a way where it's causing possible harm to other people.
Like for you, when would something cross the threshold into quote unquote harm? We were just talking about how we use drugs as medicine and like recreationally, but obviously harm reduction implies that the thing is harmful. So I don't know. I go back and forth between like thinking of drugs as harmful and helpful, and it's not that simple. But does there come a point where you know that it's not helping you anymore?
It depends on the substance. There are things that I've been addicted to, and there's things that I've not been addicted to that I've tried just throughout my life. And stopping usually comes with some sort of physical consequence. Mm-hmm. When my body is like, you should probably chill. And then that's when I kind of lay off. I just listen to what my body tells me. I just do the best I can. Sometimes I keep going anyway, but that comes back to the relationship. You're having a respectful relationship. Like, say I have a relationship with fucking heroin, because I did. I never injected heroin. I was snorting heroin, but I made rules for myself of things that I would never do if I was going to become a heroin addict. I would never steal from my friends. I would never miss work. There were some other things that I can't remember, but it was more like a morality thing of me, of having respect for the drug, because I've seen other people like destroy their lives with it. But my use with heroin was very intentional. My grandmother died the same year that I realized that I was trans, and I didn't know how to process that. I didn't know how to process grief. And I also had no community out there to support me with this transition. I knew I wanted to start tea, but I didn't know anyone, a single fucking person that was around me.
You said you were 27?
Yeah, or like 28. Yeah. To like give me that guidance, and that just be there with me, you know? There's no mentor through this. And my grandmother was like, honestly, the only person in my life that showed me like unconditional love. And when she died, it was kind of like unconditional love died with her. So my heroin use was very intentional to push that stuff away because I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't have the tools to deal with it. So I did the best that I could. Even if it did make my body really fucking sick. I would wake up and it was like hard to walk down the stairs because I was in so much pain. But that's all I had access to help me. Because nobody else knew what the fuck my problem was. Or like, there are things that I need that I'm like, I'm going to be the best one to know what I need. And the cool thing about addicts or whatever, or the thing that I admire about people that are addicts is we're resourceful.
Yes.
And we find ways to make things happen. But it's all to care for ourselves so we can continue to participate.
Yeah. No, addicts are some of the best people I know. I've said it many times on the podcast. It's just, there's so much stigma.
My father was a heroin addict, and my mom was an alcoholic and used other substances like coke and stuff, but I don't know. I know gin was her favorite. My dad was the first person I ever loved and felt loved by. That may seem silly because, of course, your parents, but my parents got divorced when I was 2. And I didn't get to see him hardly ever. He was always in and out of prison and just not able to be in my life very much. But I loved him so much, and he loved me. And I knew that the way he loved me, his addiction, the substance that everybody said was so bad that had such control of him, that wasn't him or what he wanted to be. He wanted to be the good person who loved me. And I knew that person was there always. Mm-hmm. And that person deserved love.
Yeah, that's the thing. People treat you they treat you different when they know you use drugs. Even if they say they're cool with it, people treat you differently.
Man, fuck those people.
Yeah.
Those people don't be in my fucking life.
Yeah.
I've become a lot more strict with that because if I know someone's on the edge, someone's open to conversation about it, then maybe I can change their perspective. But for the most part, if people are being discriminatory, you're not my people. I know you're in situations like work and stuff where you can't help from being around people, but I don't know.
I think there's also placing boundaries too. I understand when people have their own substance abuse issues and they can't be around people using or things like that. I think boundaries play a role too.
Well, that's the thing with me and alcohol currently. I can be around people drinking. I just can't be around people who are drinking alcoholically like I used to do, if that makes sense. And that's very specific to me, but I know that I can't articulate that boundary, but I know it when I
know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. That's just an example.
Because being drunk is different than a lot of the other drugs.
Well, yeah.
And it's also unpredictable.
Yes. It's a very unpredictable one.
Yeah.
And a lot of drugs they pretty much get you to a destination and you kind of stay there, but alcohol can go all over the place. It can change your mood from one thing to another. So you don't really know what's coming.
You really don't.
It's scary for children.
Yeah, it's scary, period. And alcohol is just so normalized. It's everywhere you look. I can't even watch my free trial of Hulu without getting an ad for, gin or something. And 2 friends I have now that have died this year under the age of 30, and they used alcohol. And, when I overdosed earlier this year, it was with alcohol and Benadryl.
Yeah. I have a difficult time being around.
Well, okay, so the opposite of harm reduction, I would argue, is abstinence, the abstinence only approach.
I don't know if that's the opposite.
Well,
I think that harm reduction is an umbrella term, and abstinence can be in there.
That's true, yeah.
I think about it okay, there's certain partners that I've had in my life where it's I can't be around them again. Because if I'm around them, shit's going to start and it's going to get bad. So those are the type of drugs that it's just
yeah.
I can't do this drug because I know if I get around it, things are going to be bad. It's kind of like an ex.
Yeah.
They're so hot, but they make me so fucking angry or whatever. I can't spend time with them. I can't really get back into it because that starts really quickly. So I think that's where a good abstinence piece comes in.
Yeah.
But that doesn't have to be with everything. It can be independent of how you want to have your relationships with drugs. If that was the one drug that you had a problem with and there's no other drugs, then that's what works for you. Great. That's still harm reduction.
Totally.
But if you're doing multiple drugs and you're trying to decide which ones you want to abstain from and which ones you still want to use, that's kind of how I think about it.
Yeah, I love that.
X is coming back, they're real hot. Should I? No, I should probably not. I love you from afar, but
God, but they look so good in the red dress.
I know, right?
Don't do it.
But yeah, no, it's exactly my relationship with alcohol. I get suicidal when I drink. And I learned, like, yeah, abstinence is the only approach for me. I've tried moderation upwards of like 9 times, and it never works. For me, it's different for everyone. And I initially started smoking weed because I didn't have alcohol and I wanted something, and it didn't scratch that same itch. Like, it didn't make me feel like obliterated. It didn't give me like oblivion like alcohol did. And honestly, I kind of miss it sometimes, the oblivion.
Is there a specific thing that you know that you could achieve with alcohol that makes you come back to it? I mean, you said like coming home, but like if it was medicine treating you for something, what is it treating?
I think it makes me feel like I'm not responsible. Because normally, like, I've had suicidal ideation since I was a kid, but I also am the oldest of 7, and I'm a very responsible person, and I feel like I can't take my own life without feeling guilty, and I'm kind of bitter about that sometimes. I want to, like, be carefree, and it's not even always about the suicidal ideation, just wanting to not give a fuck, I guess. It's very hard for me to do. And alcohol gave me that ability at first, anyway.
To say no or set clear boundaries?
I don't know. No, because I've broken so many boundaries while drunk.
Or like stand up for yourself? Or...
I mean, it was self-harm in the end. Just like my Benadryl abuse and like just like my eating disorder and my actual self-harm. Like, I think that's why like harm reduction was so revolutionary for me to find out about, because it's like not judging you. I think shame is the cause of all this stuff, and like harm reduction, I guess, is a really great antidote for shame because it gives you the power and the education. Yeah.
That's the forgiving yourself piece, I think.
We've come full circle. This has been all over the place.
My kind of conversation.
I think it all comes down to knowing yourself, listening to your body, like you said. And for some of us, that's really hard.
I think it's something that we're taught to ignore.
Like, why are we all suffering?
But just ignoring our limits and not listening to that. Listen to what your body needs. And be safe.
What is safe, even?
I think safety is different for everyone.
And you need community to have that. This shouldn't all be on you. It should be a community helping and chipping in with their different skill set of how to do it. Because we're too complex to just have it be a black and white thing. Like, I do this or I not do this. It's good for me. It's not good for me.
Yeah.
Like, there are ways that things can be set up where if you need to talk to somebody instead or after you do substance, like, that can be available. There's like, there's ways that like it doesn't have to go in a direction of self-harm. It can be really healing. If you have like a powerful substance that can change your state of mind, like you have this like powerful thing and it's just like, it makes shit really bad, but it can also make shit really good. How do you build the foundation to make that be a really good experience? And I think that comes with like I said, like community, destigmatizing things, forgiving yourself for it, like rehumanizing people. Because like when we see people that don't have a place to live and they're on the street and they're doing drugs, like we are conditioned to be like, fuck that person. We don't care. They deserve it or whatever.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot.
But it's just like, they deserve our respect and they deserve like our compassion, and they are community too. And they need help as well. And we need to shift the idea. And people think like, oh, I have to save the fucking world. Like, no, you don't. Just think about okay.
Well,
act locally and think globally. Like, act in the space that you're around and think how it's going to impact the world big picture. So you try to be familiar with the people in your town.
Yes.
And then how can you contribute to those people and be that person? And then everyone starts their healing journey with where you live. I don't know where the fuck I want to live, so.
You and me both. I'm here for another year at least.
I'm looking at other planets right now.
The government, all these substances, like say that the substances are all on a table. The government or like the elite people, the 1% or whatever, being able to have control of what those substances do and how they impact people to keep them where they are, they're going to navigate it however they want because they're the ones that have like the first bids of it because they're the most wealthy. Some drugs are going to be stigmatized in a certain way. Some drugs are intentionally being put in communities to fuck them up. Some drugs are prescribed by doctors for that intention to get people addicted to heroin so then they can pay to get off of heroin. So it's a cycle of weaponization of these products by people with the intention of keeping us down. And we have these same tools around us that are like from the earth a lot. And I just feel like there's other ways that we can find our own liberation with those things that doesn't mean harming us.
Yeah.
It means like soothing us and just respecting it as a tool and not weaponizing it anymore, or not seeing it as something negative, seeing it as like just this neutral thing that we can build a respect with. And ideally just like, I don't want to think that like, you know, people take substances, they go to a GNC and like, oh, I want to pick this out. I want to pick this out. Do you know what's in there? Have you seen the person put that together? You're going to trust that it is what it is on the bottle, and you're going to take it and things are going to be good. But then other substances that work for people that are stigmatized, you might not feel the same way about those. When I do know that I have like results from this.
Well, yeah, so when I drink an energy drink, I never know what the fuck I'm drinking.
Yeah. So it's just like, who are you going to trust as far as that goes? Like, I don't want some substances to be seen as like bad. You know, if you're taking a supplement, you're doing it to heal yourself. And like, you're taking microdoses of mushrooms.
Yes, I am.
You're doing that to heal yourself. You're taking a resource from the earth.
Absolutely.
And using it as like a medical thing, you know? You're healing.
I'm also taking tons of supplements. You know this, right?
But like, I'm just saying.
But no. But yeah, it's just funny because like, yes, I also take tons of supplements. But
well, that's what I mean. It's just like, how are they different?
Yeah.
How are they different when they're not weaponized by the ruling class?
Absolutely.
They're just neutral. And like, I don't want to discount the trauma that people have experienced.
Of course not.
You know, because that's valid and that should be worked on anyway, but it's not the substance that did it.
Yeah.
It was the weaponization of the substance and how it was used.
Substances have no moral value whatsoever.
No, there's no morality to it. But saying that and believing that is very different because, you know, there's people when you go out, say you're out walking and you see somebody and you think it's like a meth pipe or like a crack pipe that they're smoking, like what's the first thought that comes into your head? If you know it's not weed, you know, there might be like a judgment, like, are they smoking meth?
Or fear.
Yeah, or just something negative.
Yeah, something negative, definitely.
But then like, why? Why do you associate it with that drug? What is that person going through where that drug works for them?
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason, they're using it. It's a scary drug, you know, that lifestyle, but they need it for some reason to get out of whatever trauma and shit that they're going through so they can have a good day the best they can.
I think there's more nuance to it than that.
Well, there is a ton of nuance that we're probably skipping over.
Well, like what? Like add the nuance to it.
It can go in many different directions is what I'm saying. Like the person could be there because it's, as you said before, there's a place where people get to with using substances where they will destroy themselves and their lives around them for that substance. And it can be any number of substances that we associate with being something dark and scary or something that's widely accepted, like alcohol.
I think a lot of the times when people get to the point of destroying their lives and their family is because they were taking this medicine, trying to look for something else, and they never got their needs met. And it just got worse and worse and worse, and nothing came along to help them in the meantime, which could have been a lot of things.
Right.
And accessibility is an issue. They might not have been accessible to it. There's a lot of things that keep people from having their needs met, but the person that was using was trying to survive with that. And if other resources came in, if harm reduction came in and community came in to replace that a little bit, then it wouldn't be the only thing this person had. And that's usually when it gets bad, is because like they can't depend on anything else to support them, but they know this one thing supports them. And then it's like a codependent relationship. I think there are certain substances that target ADHD people.
Oh shit, talk more about that.
And it might not be intentional, but there's things that ADHD and autistic people need, and there's certain drugs and things made available to them instead of other things being made available because of like humanizing them, being like, these are the things that they need. They give us cigarettes. They give us vapes.
They give us alcohol.
They give us alcohol to ease the social pain, make you feel more comfortable. It helps you stim. It helps you get away. You know, if you have to go outside and smoke, have some private time to decompress. There's no other resources that our government, essentially, or this country really makes readily available to young people to process emotions in those spaces or help them or give them a stim toy, or like people don't normalize what people need.
Yeah, they also make people afraid of people's body movements.
Right.
Like, you're told to be fearful of somebody walking down the street if they're, twitching their body.
Yeah, or moving in a way that you don't understand, like flapping their arms. Or like, oh, this person is dangerous. We're meant to think that because it's weird, because we don't see it, because society doesn't let us see it. They just want us to fucking smoke cigarettes and vape instead. When you should be flapping your arms.
Yeah. Is that the secret?
Yeah, or you should be doing the little T-Rex arms.
Instead of vaping.
Try to let your body stim next time you want to vape. See if it...
I mean, I've been doing it this whole time. I've been stimming, that is not vaping.
Yeah.
This has been a great conversation.
Thanks.
It's gone all over the place, and I loved it.
I'm really good at talking, so...
You are. Do you have any final thoughts, Phoenix?
It's so much pressure to have final thoughts on something that's going to be recorded and put out into the universe.
Yeah, fuck final thoughts,
but also,
honestly.
if you don't, you can just cut it if you think of something.
I mean, I pretty much don't like any time I've spoken today. I don't know. I just...
That's how I've been feeling this whole time.
Really? I feel proud of myself. Sorry, y'all.
Come say goodbye. Oh my god. Rune is doing things to my microphone.
Goodbye.
That was beautiful.
Goodbye.
Good night.
If you like what you heard, tell a friend about the podcast. You can direct them to picklesandvodka.substack.com, where you can find our entire back catalog and links to all our social media. We love hearing from our listeners, so send us a voice message at speakpipe.com/picklesandvodka or DM us at Pickles and Vodka Podcast on Instagram. My personal account is at XtinaJumper, and Lauren is at Lauren_AFH. We'll see you next week.